It is time to go through all the books that I read in the month of December. I had a little bit of a slower reading month. I read a total of 3 books. One of them was an audiobook and the other 2 were physical / kind of Kindle too. So to start us off, I listened to Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage, and this is part of an interconnected standalone series. And this follows Gus, who is a rancher, and Teddy, his sister's best friend, I think is how she's like connected. Gus is a single dad and he is super busy running the ranch and doesn't really accept the fact that he needs help. There ends up being a situation where then Teddy helps him out. It is such a fun read. There's such witty, funny, cute banter. I rated this 4 stars. Next up, I read A December to Remember by Jenny Bayliss, I think is how you say it. I got this book last year with the intention of reading it in the winter time. I tried reading it and ended up kind of soft DNFing it last year. I just couldn't get into it at first. I picked it back up this December because I was determined to read it in December. I rated this 3 stars. In this story, we are following 3 estranged sisters. They all have the same father and he passes away. And essentially we end up kind of going on an adventure with these 3 sisters, trying to unlock their inheritance. So that made the story fun and interesting. You're kind of on this mystery hunt with the 3 sisters. It's very wholesome, small town vibes also. Very Christmassy, very wintry. It's a beautiful, wholesome story. So I really did enjoy it and I'm really glad I finally read it. Next up, I picked up The Book Club Hotel by Sarah Morgan, and this book was so good. I absolutely loved it. I rated it 4 stars. This book, we're following 4 women's point of views, and 3 of them are best friends and they get together once a year for book club. And then there's another woman who owns Maple Sugar Inn. So you discover that Hattie, who owns Maple Sugar Inn, is connected to one of the other 3 women, which is pretty fun and interesting. And so there's a little bit of like mystery to that, and you discover kind of how they're connected. What I really appreciated about this book is it's more of a literary fiction. It's not a lot of romance. There was like little sprinkles of romance in this that I wish we could have dove deeper into, because some of the banter between those characters was really fun. But I really appreciated how this book discussed going through change and how at the end of the day, change is inevitable in life and it's gonna happen. We have to accept it and embrace it. We have to change our perspective about change and find the beauty that is change and that can come from things changing. It was really fun to just see all of the women come together and just navigate change and support each other and love each other, and I really enjoyed it. So that's all that I read in December. Like I said, I had a pretty slow reading month just with the busyness of the holidays. So I thought it would be fun to go through book awards that I gave for some of my reads this year. I read a total of 74 books in 2024, which is absolutely insane to me. When I started getting back into reading this year, I did not anticipate reading that many books. I ended up starting a reading journal, which has been super fun to just get creative and also just to record all of the books that I've read throughout the month and some of my thoughts on those books. I gave out some book awards this year. So my favorite series of 2024 would have to be the Magnolia Park series by Jessa Hastings. If you haven't read that series, I encourage you to go on the journey, and it really is a journey. These characters are frustrating, they are infuriating, they are amazing, you fall in love with them, and the character development that Jessa creates with all of these characters is so unlike anything I've ever read. The quotes alone make this series worth diving into. She is such a beautiful author in the way that she writes and depicts emotions. It is just, I'm speechless by how much I absolutely adored the series. Definitely would say go into it not anticipating like a cutesy little romance. It is definitely not that. But again, it feels very real life, even though it is following kind of London high society, very rich and wealthy people. Magnolia Park's Into the Dark healed something inside of me. I mean, the level of topics that Jessa goes into that tug on your heartstrings and make it so relatable too. So I cannot speak higher. It is a 5-star series for me. I absolutely love it. My favorite romance was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Abby Jimenez really became one of my favorite authors also throughout the year in regards to a romance book. This one, just again, the writing and the way that she just depicts life and going through different situations. I just absolutely loved this book. My favorite fantasy from the year was the ACOTAR series. I really have not dabbled into fantasy, so I really have the Fourth Wing, ACOTAR, and technically the Shatter Me series to go off of. But the ACOTAR series, man, what I would do to go into that world and live there and meet the characters. It is such a fun series. I never thought I would dabble in fantasy because I always was somewhat judgmental of people that read fantasy. I was like, oh, you want to read about like dragons and fairies and whatever. But boy, was I proven wrong after reading ACOTAR, and the way that like I cried in so many of those books and was giggling and fell in love with men that have wings. I don't even know what to say, but that was a great series. One of my goals is to start the Throne of Glass series, which feels very terrifying, but we are going to really dive into some more fantasy, or that's my hope for 2025. The most surprising read was Shark Heart, which the concept of this book is so weird, but the metaphor of this story was beautiful and I was just shocked. I did not think I would like it. My coworker recommended it and I am very glad I read it. I mean, again, the metaphor of just adapting to change in life was so beautiful and I actually really enjoyed it. Most disappointing was Never by Jessa Hastings, and I do kind of want to give this book another try. I do think that I set realistic expectations just based off of what I had heard people say about the book. I just think that the Peter Pan story is not for me, so that's okay though. The book that made me cry the most was The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. I don't think I have sobbed harder than the end of that book. That whole book in general shocked me to my core because I didn't read the back of the book, so I had no idea what I was going into, and boy was I taken on a ride with that book. Some of my goals for 2025, I want to read 50 books in 2025. I really want to continue to utilize Libby and Kindle. I got a new Kindle this year, which I am so excited about. I love my Kindle. I want to utilize that instead of continuing to just buy every single book that I want, even though I probably will still do that. But thank you for listening to me yap about the books that I read and some of my favorite books throughout the year. I'm excited to see what 2025 brings. See you next time.